Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2007, directed by Kim Jin-won, and this film is called The Butcher. So The Butcher is about a group of young Koreans. They wake up to find themselves stranded in a slaughterhouse located in the middle of nowhere in rural South Korea. They've been tied up and they've got GoPros strapped to their head. So pretty soon they're going to find out that they're part of a snuff film that is directed by a complete lunatic, and the killers also have GoPros strapped to their head, and the whole idea of this is to give the viewer of these snuff films the point of view, basically a more intimate connection with what's going on. And so these victims are subjected to all kinds of absolute horror, and there's also a lot of psychological torment that is thrown in there, which ultimately suggests that if the victims are to escape this alive, they're going to have to fight back and outwit their opponents. So whether or not they can is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Butcher. Expectations coming into this movie were very, very low. Now this is a pseudo-snuff film. Now pseudo-snuff, for those of you who don't know, it's a subgenre within the horror genre that is very underground. Now this underground subgenre is not confined by limitations, it's not confined by censorship, it's basically showing you extremity, and extremity done in a way where you are just absolutely gobsmacked by how depraved things get. And so this is not the first of its kind. There have been numerous other films. You've got August Underground, you've got Grotesque, the Guinea Pig series. You've got other films such as Nico Darama. These movies that are very, very, very notorious for actually basically kind of trying to trick the audience into thinking that they're actually real. And so it's like you've found a videotape in a train station or a bus station and actually putting it in, and it's like a diary of a serial killer. And so it is a subgenre, and there's a strong following to this subgenre, but for me, they're just basically exercises in brutality and just a demonstration of how disgusting one film can get. And it's basically trying to out-disgust the next film. And there's nothing really behind it as far as character development. There's no real story. It's just basically watching horrible things happen to people. And so that's not my cup of tea. I believe it's very juvenile filmmaking. It's like the kid in the classroom is making as much noise as possible just to get attention. It's a rebellious sort of feel that these films have. It's sticking the middle finger up at society, but it's done in a way where it's not much to it. Now, yes, it is demonstrating really good special effects, but that's pretty much it. And so that's the reason why I had skepticism coming into The Butcher, is that, all right, I've seen so many of these movies, how is this movie going to be any different? So coming into this film with absolute zero expectations, I will say that although it's not a good movie, as far as a traditional sense is concerned, I still actually liked it a lot more than a lot of these other similar films. And I think the reason why I liked it a lot more is that you do have a visual sort of brutal response to this film, but you also have a very psychologically cruel film as well. And that psychological cruelty gives you some sympathy towards these characters without it trying to go into character development. It doesn't need that character development, because the way this movie is done and the way the movie finishes, it would just have you surprised at how cruel and evil this movie is. And I actually thought it worked in its favour, because it does give you some sympathetic qualities to these people. You don't like these people because they're good people, but you sympathise for them, therefore you want them to get out of this predicament. Is because I thought it was actually quite well acted. That was a breath of fresh air in these sorts of movies. I thought the reactions from these victims and the screams in terror, I thought were very, very authentic, and it really got me, it shook me. I thought, all right, well, here we are. We're in for something that's going to be an absolute endurance test, and The Butcher is definitely an endurance test, and part of that endurance test is intensified through the use of GoPro. Is that when these killers are using a hammer, you feel as though you as the viewer are experiencing each and every blow. And so I thought the GoPro aspect actually worked in its favour once again and gave it a bit of a unique twist, is that you were almost like the victim in this movie, and then when it switches to the killer's perspective, it felt like you were the killer. And so these horrible acts of violence, I thought it hits you on a much more intimate level, as opposed to other films that are there just for the sake of shocking you. So The Butcher does have shocking aspects. The gore effects were phenomenal. It is a very, very, very extreme film. It has gore, it has torture, it has sexual violence, everything that you'd want from a pseudo-snuff kind of film. But as I said, that psychologically taxing aspect, it was psychological torture as well, that really gets in the mind of the viewer, and I thought it plays a lot stronger than films of this type. And so the cinematography, it's like a found footage, shaky cam, the GoPro, which can be a little bit distracting, but I thought the setting of this slaughterhouse being the environment, I thought was very off-putting, very, very dirty. And I really like the main killer in this movie, the torturer. He has this pig head on, and I thought he looked really intimidating intimidating, and it was also a nod to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There were aspects that I thought were very similar to that, which was an added surprise because it's clear that this director is a fan of the horror genre, and although he's making a pseudo-snuff film that is not much as far as story and characters are concerned, he still manages to give you a glimpse of sympathetic quality. Therefore, you feel the pain that this guy is you feel the pain that this guy is going through, and at the same time you feel as though you're the victim, and at the same time you are the killer, which gives you a very sort of uncomfortable approach to the film. And as I said, the ending was absolutely cruel. It was a lot crueler than I thought it would be, and so there is some thought put into a film that just doesn't have much going for it, which is ultimately the problem. Is a lot of pseudo-snuff films, it's victims that wake up, they're getting tortured horribly, you don't know anything about them, you don't really know anything about the killers, it's just horrible things happening to people. It's humanity, everything that's good about humanity, all the innocence of humanity, you know, human decency is being rolled up in a ball, it's been chewed upon, it's been swallowed, and it's just been vomited up onto the screen, and it's making no apologies for it. And so for me, I come away from this movie liking it, although I wouldn't say it was a very good movie because, as I said, it doesn't have too much going for it, and it possesses all the negatives that pseudo-snuff has. But the reason why it elevates itself above a lot of the pseudo-snuff films is because it does have some sort of intimate sort of connection where you feel as though you're going through the endurance test that everyone in the film is. So if it sounds like your kind of thing, I would recommend The Butcher. It is well made, and it does have a little bit more going for it. So as a result of that, I'm going to give this film 2 stars. Now, 2 stars is almost like 5 stars as far as these movies are concerned, because a lot of the other pseudo-snuff stuff that I've watched, I've only given half a star or even 1, 2. So 2 stars for The Butcher. It is definitely one of the best pseudo-snuff films, so if it sounds like your kind of thing, I would highly recommend you go and check it out. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.